I have never read anything like this. I don't know if there is a book like this. I like the Chrysler Building. It's a very beautiful building, but she mentioned it so many times. I just didn't like it. Sorry. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm a little late on this. I know it's like past the half-year point. I'm going to tell you my best and worst books that I've read this year. I've read a total of 35 books this year so far. I wanted to start with the worst. I think it would be better to get that out of the way. These are in no particular order, really. This first book on my worst books of 2024 so far, it might be a bit of a hot take. I know people really like this author. However, I do think I see people talk more about her other book. The first book is My Name is Lucy Barton by Elizabeth Strout. Now, like I said, a lot of people like Elizabeth Strout. They like her book called Oh William, which I didn't know until reading Lucy Barton that is sort of a continuation. I don't know, there's like 4 books. Please don't come for me if that's wrong. I really didn't like this one. There were some moments that I could appreciate the writing style. I'm someone who really likes flashbacks. I think flashbacks can really help a story, especially a type of story like this, like Lucy Barton, where it is about someone sort of reflecting on their life and how it has led them to this point that they're in right now and how it has shaped their perspectives on things. Those are some of my favorite stories. So that's why I actually thought I was really going to like this book. But towards the end of the book, I never felt that Lucy understood herself anymore. And again, I think that some people might say that if I were to read the other books, maybe I would feel that because it's sort of not the ending, you know? Actually, I don't know if this is considered the last book in the series, so I don't know if this is supposed to be the ending. She talked about the Chrysler Building many times, and I struggled to see the importance of the Chrysler Building. I like the Chrysler Building. It's a very beautiful building, but she mentioned it so many times. I just didn't like it. Sorry. Another one that I am going to be putting on the worst list is a book called Zori by Laird Hunt. When I listened to this book, I was in a sort of nostalgic mood. Some of my favorite novels are Anne of Green Gables and A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. So I really wanted to find something else that sort of evoked that same sort of feeling. And then I stumbled across Zori, and unfortunately I was disappointed by it. I think having read Anne of Green Gables right before that, and then having pretty recently read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, I think I read it last year or the year before last, I feel confident in saying that Zori was sort of trying to evoke those same sorts of feelings. Right off the bat, I thought the pacing was pretty off. You go in sort of expecting to grow up with Zori, but she ends up becoming an adult very fast, which could be reflective of her childhood and, the things that happened in her childhood that sort of maybe forced her to grow up fast, maybe. And she does go through a lot in her adult life, and I suppose that the author just wanted to focus on that a bit more. Just for me, it felt a little too rushed. The last book I'm going to talk about on my worst books is a book called Cult Classic by Sloane Crosley. This story actually felt very TV show like. I felt that this could have been adapted into like a Netflix series. And I don't necessarily mean that in like a negative way. Like when you think this meeting could have been an email, this novel could have been a short story. This novel could have been a Netflix series. There's a lot going on in this novel. It is very intriguing. It's an interesting concept. Unfortunately, the concept sort of unravels, the mystery of the concept sort of unravels very close to the start of the book. And then once you know that, I really just feel like there's nothing else keeping you interested anymore. All right. My camera ran out of storage while I was talking about cult classics. I'm actually holding my mic now. Maybe the audio is better. Let's go ahead and get into the best books that I have read so far in 2024. Almost forgot what year it was. Some books that I want to talk about that are sort of honorable mention. Second Place by Rachel Cusk. It was my first Rachel Cusk book. It was also the first book I think that I read this year. It was really great. I want to read more Rachel Cusk. I did read 2 Sally Rooney books this year. These were also my first Sally Rooney books. I read Conversations with Friends and Beautiful World, Where Are You? I'm glad that I read Conversations with Friends first because I did like that one better. Beautiful World, Where Are You? I don't think would really go on my best list. I didn't really vibe with it that well. I also finally read My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I think we've all heard about My Year of Rest and Relaxation. It's a great book. You either love it or you hate it. I loved it. So the first books that I want to talk about on my best list are 2 books by Claire Keegan, and I listened to the audiobooks of Foster and Small Things Like These. She's sort of the master of creating these stories that are not very long, but they're so powerful. They're so impactful. Another book that I read that I actually found sort of surprising to be on my best. I went into this book expecting to like it, but I didn't know that I would love it. And that is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. Such a great book. I love Japanese literature and art and movies. So like I said, I knew I was going to like this novel. I didn't expect for it to be one of my new favorites. I do want to read more by her. Another one that I read pretty recently is actually a play by Tennessee Williams. It's called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I have read other Tennessee Williams. The Glass Menagerie is one of my favorite plays. It was pretty much as good as I had expected, although I do think that I liked The Glass Menagerie better. I would highly recommend getting this edition. It also has this essay, essentially, written by Tennessee Williams himself, and it's titled Author and Director, A Delicate Situation. Very interesting, especially if you are into theater. Another book on my best list, If on a Winter's Night, A Traveler by Italo Calvino. This book is very interesting. This book is not going to be for everyone. Calvino really plays around with perspective, points of view, characters, without giving too much away. This truly feels like each chapter is a different book. I recommend that you read it, especially if you're into sort of slightly surreal. I wouldn't say it leans too heavily into the surreal. I didn't find it that surreal as much as I just found it so experimental, so unique. I have never read anything like this. I don't know if there is a book like this. This book on my best list is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. This is a very well-known book, a well-known classic. I think this review by Zadie Smith on the back of my copy is just the perfect way to describe this novel. She says, a deeply soulful novel. Hurston is a lyrical writer who believes in the transformative power of storytelling and who takes risks with sentiment that few contemporary writers are prepared to make. And that is so true. It is just so profound. It's amazing. It's amazing. She is a genius. Please read this book. The last book I'm going to talk about is a classic. This is a polarizing book. The last book on my best list is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Most people that I talk to that read this in high school hate it, and they've never reread it. I'm really glad I didn't read this in high school. I think if I read this in high school, I would have thought that Holden Caulfield was such an, and don't get me wrong, he is an, yes, we know that he is misogynistic amongst many other terrible qualities. People do say that this book is like the representation, the perfect representation of teen angst. And I just think that that's a little surface level. I think it takes that sort of hindsight that you have as an adult to understand what Holden is feeling beneath his sort of rough surface. We all can probably understand his sort of growing unease and anger towards the world, and how his grief is sort of fueling that. That is my worst and best books that I've read so far in 2024. If you liked this video, please leave a like, and please feel free to subscribe. I'm going to do more videos like this. I'm also going to talk more about writing and probably movies too. Thanks for watching.